welcome to the A to Z Sports Big Orange Podcast. I am Charlie Burris. That is Zach Reagan. Wherever you listen throughout the world, we thank you so much for listening to us. Zach and I talk everything Vols every week here on the Big Orange Podcast. If you want to listen to that on the reg, go over to the A to Z Sports Podcast Network feed on Apple or Spotify. When you get there, rate, review, but most importantly, subscribe. And if you do subscribe, you won't miss our shows when we drop them on Mondays. And speaking of Mondays, it is one right now at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And we are live on YouTube at the A to Z Sports Nashville YouTube channel. Wait, it's not. I completely skipped over. I was just reading my thing. It's not Monday, is it? We waited till Wednesday because it's National Signing Day. We wanted to talk about National Signing Day. But normally it is on a Monday. And so that's when the show normally is at 7 p.m. And if you just hit that notification bell, whenever we go live, you'll be notified on YouTube. And then you can come hang out and comment on the show and be a part of the show. And it's a lot of fun. We love interacting with everybody. It's a good time every single week. At Charlie _ Burris, at Zach TNT, at A to Z Sports, A to Z, Facebook.com/A to Z Sports, and A to Z Sports.com for everything that Zach writes on the internet. Oh boy, as I mentioned, it is not Monday. It is Wednesday. And it was National Signing Day. I mean, there's really no point. Technically, early signing day, I guess. But it's really not anymore. This is National Signing Day. Yeah, there is another one. But that one has lost all of its life, which is a real shame because it used to be a lot of fun. But still, this one was pretty wild. It's not over yet, actually. You got some pretty interesting storylines still hanging out there. But I think Tennessee's day is more or less wrapped up. And there's a ton to talk about. Zach, what's up, man?
It ended up being a little more compelling today than we kind of expected, with more storylines, and the bulk of the work is done in this class and is done weeks before signing day ever gets here. So much, like you said, it's so different than it used to be, and I still prefer it the old way because it kind of all hits on one day and you really have a lot of drama. But there's some drama this year, especially with some rival SEC programs. Lots of moving and shaking. The NIL factor, of course, always, plays a factor in these decisions. And then transfer portal stuff still going on at the same time. It seems like you have like the 24/7 sports transfer tracker alert, like tweet alert set up on my phone, and that thing goes off all day, every day, and it has since the beginning of December, and it still is. So it's a lot still going on right now.
There really is a ton to talk about. Obviously, we're going to break down what happened with Tennessee, with recruiting and the transfer portal at this point, because that's one of the interesting things of this day and what it's become. They tweet out, like they always have, at least since the invention of, what Twitter is now. They tweet out every recruit, this person signed, this person signed, this person signed. And they've started doing transfers too, and Tennessee got a commit from a transfer this morning, a pretty good one that I think should be valuable for them. Regardless, we'll discuss it all. It's going to be the transfer portal. It's going to be recruiting. It's going to be maybe who's going to be Tennessee's quarterback in the bowl game. A little interesting topic and some stuff to cover there. And then maybe a little basketball to wrap up the show at the end of the hour. We'll discuss it all, and we'll start right after I tell you about the great folks at Farm Bureau Health Plans. Farm Bureau Health Plans have been serving Tennesseans for over 75 years. Much has changed in Tennessee over the years, but some has stayed the same. Farm Bureau Health Plans has always valued personal relationships, especially when it comes to good health and good service. Plan on Farm Bureau Health Plans for health, dental, and vision. For better coverage, better rates, and better service, go to fbhp.com/ATOZ or walk into one of their 200-plus locations across the state of Tennessee. That is fbhp.com/ATOZ. Farm Bureau Health Plan. Shout out to them for supporting the show. And let's get to it. So today, I don't know that maybe if you could find just like a list. Do you have a list of all of the commits that happened today? I mean, we can go through. They're all on Twitter. They're wherever. but everybody that's signed, we can go through and list every single one. But I think the conversation that's really worth having is not just saying, here's who everybody got. It's just looking at where Tennessee is essentially going to finish with this class, because the speculation was, will it be top 15? Will it be top 20? Will it potentially be top 10? Tennessee was kind of right in that range. I believe started the day at number 14. I want to say the last time I looked, did they rise to number 11?
That's what they are right now. They're at
Okay.
11, just ahead of LSU. Still a little ways behind Florida State for that number 10 spot. But there's still a few things that could happen that perhaps they get into that top 10. But they're right there in that top 10-ish area with Florida State, Oklahoma, LSU, Clemson. They're in that range right there. Not bad company.
No, definitely not. I think the first thing to point out is that there were no huge surprises or anything like that. Either way, there were no big losses, no big flips. You had some teams get hammered by flips. Florida being primary among them. I mean, my goodness, they dropped from number 4 to like number 15. Just brutal, dropped like a rock. And I'll say, man, you hate to see that, don't you? That's tough. Oh man. But they kept their best guy though. They kept Lagway. So congratulations there, I guess. But otherwise, yeah, not a ton of surprises. But I'll just throw it to you, Zach, to start things off. Your thoughts on the day? How do you think Tennessee did?
Yeah, I mean, like we said, a lot of the drama had already taken place. I think in the last couple of days, the last time we talked, I was a little more down on the recruiting stuff, and there's still some misses in this class. There are guys that Tennessee wanted that they didn't get. There are guys that they tried really hard to get, Jordan Seaton, for example, and who knows what's, that situation's still evolving. I guess it's still possible he could end up at Tennessee at this point. I don't think anybody really knows what to expect. He's kind of went silent, it seems like. Could be Maryland, you're kind of hearing now. Might still end up at Colorado. Who knows? I know one of the guys from On 3, said he confirmed that Tennessee finished second to Colorado. So Tennessee was right there earlier this month. But that's a roller coaster. You do somehow get him, and that makes the class look a lot different. But that's one of those where you can't really fault Tennessee for not getting that guy. I know we've kind of talked about that before, but they went and did whatever they could to try to get that guy. Reports of 7-figure NIL deals being thrown out there. But outside of that whole situation, this is like average player rating. It's the best that Tennessee's had, going back to the Philip Fulmer era. So the quality of player, it's like a 91, a little bit over 91 is the average player rating in this class. I think when in the, I have to go back and look to make sure, but when Butch Jones had that top 15 class in top 5 class in 2015, the average player rating was like 85 or 86. It was just
wow.
It was propped up by let me find that for sure just to make sure. But it was propped up by the fact that was before you kind of had the limit on how many you could sign, and they had all that gray shirt, blue shirt kind of madness going on where you could finagle the numbers a little bit, but they had, I don't know, like 30 commits in that class that made that class look a little better than it really was. Here, I got it. There were some great players in that class with Kamara, but it just finished third overall, and the average player rating was 89. So not quite as low, but not as impressive. Yeah, not as impressive as what, Heupel has in this class. You've got some real difference makers in this class. I mean, a Mike Matthews, the highest rated wide receiver Tennessee signed. Boo Carter, obviously, who everybody's excited about, especially after hearing Josh Heupel talk about him today. He's been on campus 3 or 4 days, and it sounds like he's already wowed them a little bit. Last week at Boo Carter's kind of signing ceremony he had, because he wasn't going to be able to have one because he's been going through bowl game practices this week. He mentioned that the defense he played in high school was very similar to Tennessee's, so he's already kind of comfortable in that style of scheme. Just the terminology is a bit different. So going through those practices, spring practice, I mean, we'll see how it shakes out. I know Tennessee doesn't really have a reputation for playing safeties young right now, but maybe he gets on the field as a true freshman. Definitely is going to be a factor in the return game, it sounds like. Heupel called him kind of a natural returner there. And other programs, I mean, Colorado, it wasn't just Colorado they really went hard after him. Like I think Boo Carter's one of those guys that when it's all said and done, it's going to be like, how was this guy not a 5-star talent? Is it the size wasn't quite what they wanted it to be, maybe because he's not your 6'2" prospect? Whatever the case is, programs really wanted him, and Tennessee had to work really hard to hold off those other programs. So you want to get down about some misses here and there that Heupel and the staff had, you've got to give them credit for managing to hold on to Boo Carter and his teammate too, Marcus Gorey, that's going to come in and play cornerback, has ideal length for a corner. I think he might be a little underrated too. A couple of really nice pickups there, in-state pickups that can really help this team. So, you got Jordan Ross, obviously, he could be a premier edge rusher. Guy from 24/7 Sports kind of compared him to a Brian Burns type. If you can get that type of talent there, that's what you got to have to win in the SEC. That's kind of what you're seeing from James Pierce. So you just kind of have another one of those in the pipeline. Bennett Warren coming in could be a future NFL draft pick at offensive tackle. So you've got some really good talent coming in, developmental talent. Tennessee's gonna have to keep them on campus for the next 3 years. I mean, that's another story in its own. We'll see how many of these players stay throughout this class, but so far, Tennessee's trying to build more through high school recruiting than through the transfer portal. They've been able to do that for the most part so far. It's still early in Heupel's tenure. He's still this is his 4th season, so he's really just going through his first kind of full cycle of a 4-year kind of span at this program. But they aren't. They lost some secondary guys that. Yeah, you'd like to have them for depth, but at the same time, we complained about those guys all season long, so you can't really complain about them leaving. I think Tyler Barron's the only real huge loss that, and you got guys to replace Barron. You got the talent there, but Tyler Barron is an NFL type talent. I'm not going to say he's going to go be a Pro Bowl or anything like that, but he'll be in an NFL roster. He'll be in a rotation somewhere. It's a guy that would have helped Tennessee in 2024, but outside of that, you were able to keep the guys you wanted to keep. So we'll see how this strategy plays out for Heupel. It's clear that, there's kind of a line drawn in the sand right now. And Lane Kiffin's on one side of it, trying to go all out in the portal and seeing how that works. Heupel's kind of on the other side of it. Like, we're going to get the guys that fit this program, that we believe in, that we've evaluated, that we've spent time building these relationships with, that fit into our culture. Not guys that we've known for 10 minutes that we're saying, come over here and we'll give you $1 million to play for one season. We'll see which approach works the best. It's going to play out on the field one way or the other. So I applaud Heupel for trying to build it this way. I hope it works out. I think it is the best way to kind of build a program like this and supplement it through the portal. And Tennessee's got some really nice portal additions. Could make a couple more too. I think that the pickup from Oregon State, Jermon McCoy, is going to be a super, super underrated pickup. Yeah. Played a lot as a true freshman, had a couple of interceptions. It's hard to get on the field as a cornerback as a true freshman at any program. So I think that's a huge pickup. So I'm not quite as down on all of this as I was, a week and a half ago.
Yeah, it's kind of two conversations to me. One that's more of the just acute view of this class. Like, what do I think of the class? Take away any real context that's surrounding it. And I think the class is pretty good. I really like some of the dudes that they're coming in for, a lot of the reasons that you're saying there. I think Mike Matthews, Braylon Staley both have the potential to be dogs. Mike Matthews, he looks like a guy that you look at him and you go like, that's a future NFL player.
Side note, real quick on, because you mentioned Braylon Staley, that one I think annoyed Shane Beamer quite a bit. That was the number one receiver in the state of South Carolina. I think somebody said he made a comment today about like, we got the number one wide receiver in the state or something. So it's that one's eating away at him. So just, even better there, kind of a side note.
Yeah, I love that, obviously, because Beamer can screw off. And yeah, I know they tried to make a late push, according to reports, for Braylon Staley, and he still chose to come to Tennessee. That's great. Jake Merklinger, I think he has the potential to be a solid quarterback. Some of these O-line recruits look pretty good. Anderson, Satterwhite, and you go down the list. Like there's some talent here. Of course, I think the one that a lot of people look at defensively, Jordan Ross, looks like he could be an absolute dog with the coaching from Rodney Garner. There's dudes in this class, no doubt about it. And that's like genuinely, I'm not setting this up to try to rain on the parade. It really is a set of players that I'm pretty excited about to see. And we'll talk about the portal in a second. And I would agree that you need more portal players, and we can go into depth there in just a minute. But I like the guys that they picked up so far. And so you can look at it in that acute sense and say that there's some real dudes here. That's awesome. And then you back out and you discuss the context, and it becomes a little murkier. And I'm not here to be negative. I seriously am not, because I went on Twitter last night and I spoke my mind.
Nothing good ever comes from I went on Twitter last night when the sentence
yeah, just don't do it
that way. Don't
tweet. That's the real key. No, don't ever go on Twitter. Went on Twitter last night, and you had a three-star recruit chose Mizzou over Tennessee, and I just tweeted out the amount of losses that Josh Heupel has taken in this recruiting cycle is concerning. You have to have more dudes to play at an elite level long term. That's all I said, and you could always be better off by having more context on Twitter. It's so short that you can't add everything that you need to say around it. The thing that I think would have made some people, less annoyed with it was if I could have just said the amount of losses that Tennessee has had, and I'm not talking just about this one tonight. A lot of people were like, "You're getting mad over a 3-star player that Tennessee didn't even want a month ago going to Missouri." No. Stop. First of all, that's not what I'm saying. You know that. They know that. The people that are saying that, they know that's not what I'm saying. I tried to go back and remember a list of some of the players. I'm talking about the kid last night, sure, but take it or leave it. He would have been a nice addition. Sensabaugh is the kid's name.
Yeah,
he would have been nice. I'm not like particularly upset, but you look back, Cam Michael, Jordan Seaton, who we did a whole thing on here, Kamarion Franklin, Williams Winery, Cameron Fountain. Like there's a
Ryan
whole
Wingo.
Ryan Wingo, yeah, a whole set of dudes that Tennessee put a lot of resources towards trying to get, like really tried hard. This wasn't like, oh, we didn't really want him, and so he didn't. No, they really tried for some of these kids, and they just kept coming in second and coming in second and coming in second and coming in second, and not winning out. They did win out on some guys. Boo Carter, great. Mike Matthews, great. Jason Dyer says in the comments here, Kai Bates, that's another one that they missed out on. It was just miss after miss after miss after miss after miss after miss after miss. And why? And you look at some of the things that happened afterwards. This wasn't exactly the same, but they lose Jonathan Eccles last week, and they turn around and have to sign a guy who's just a 3-star, and you kind of look and you go like, yeah, that's an Eccles replacement for sure.
Yeah, that's what that was.
I look at it, and a lot of people are like, oh, they weren't begging him to stay. Well, they didn't have anybody lined up right behind him. Clearly.
Yeah, they weren't. I mean, they were going to sign him.
They were, and they lost him to the old offensive coordinator. And so I look at that, and like I said, it's two conversations. I like this class, and I like the dudes in it. There's some real talent here. Also, there's a concerning element here. It is both. And I don't think that you can have this full conversation without pointing out both of those things. And that's why I said last night, I tweeted this out with this GIF. I said,
why are you booing me? I'm right.
That was me last night. Why are you booing me? I'm right. This is concerning. What do you want me to say? Like it is a good class, and there's a concerning element here because I want to know your thoughts on this, Zach. The thing that I think, this is my theory, this staff, coaching staff, just does not have a lot of dog recruiters on it. It just doesn't. I don't think. And maybe you could criticize the NIL too, but we don't know enough about the behind the scenes of the NIL to speak definitively about that. I don't think. But I mean, you could question them too and ask, what exactly is going on there and the way that they work with the staff and things like that. But recruiting is just 24/7, 365. You got to be an absolute just down dirty dog working constantly in the mud. And I don't know that I see that with this staff. Maybe some dudes, but definitely not a lot of them. What do you think?
I think it's multiple things at play. I don't think it's just one thing that you can point at. I do think what you're saying is right. I know I have heard firsthand that there are some people, on this staff that don't recruit quite as hard as they should have, or they should, or they feel like they could, or others feel like they could. We've heard that. I've heard it. Feel pretty confident that is part of some of the issues. There's also some of the NIL stuff. I think the way this staff or Josh Heupel wants to build these recruiting classes, he probably, with the culture being so important, it's hard for them to go land a recruit that plays a position that somebody else on your team plays, and you're going to pay them more than that guy's making, and then you got to pay that guy more, and it just devolves into this whole, messy thing. I think that's part of it. I don't think that's all of it. I don't think that's every situation. I think it is kind of each case is its own, situation. And I think that is a factor in it. I think they're, trying to recruit the guys to this culture that are going to stick around for several years, because I think with recruiting, we're going to have to look at these classes so much differently than we used to. Even though Tennessee fans kind of have a head start on this because some of those Butch Jones classes that would fall apart over a couple of years, but you've got to look at, okay, this is what this class was in December of 2023. Now in the fall of 2025 and 2026, when most of these guys are supposed to be in their prime, really contributing, how many of them are still here? And that's when you can really judge who signed. I mean, the stars and all that, yeah, you got to sign 4-star and 5-star guys. We've seen time and time again that does equal championships. The more 4 and 5-star players you have, the more likely you are to have some studs, the more likely you are to win games. That's definitely part of the formula. But now part of that formula is keeping those guys. And do they actually ever make an impact for you? I mean, everybody was excited when Addison Nichols signed, year before last, whenever. Never made an impact. All that excitement. I'm sure we talked about him on this podcast, what he could be for Tennessee. Never panned out. None of that panned out. That player was it's almost like a wasted spot. And that's not his fault. It's not the staff's fault. That's just how it goes in recruiting sometimes. You have hits, you have misses, whatever the case. So I think that's part of it. Is it takes a little bit longer to evaluate these classes, and especially the way Tennessee's trying to build it, where that's kind of factored into the way they're putting these classes together. But I do think you've got to go land some of those Wingos and Wineries and Kai Bates, Cam Michael. Like, you've got to win your fair share of those battles somehow, some way. I mean, if Jordan Seaton's committing to Colorado and he's turning down this money from Tennessee, I don't care if it's Deion Sanders. I don't care who it is. Plenty of people went head-to-head with Deion and won out. Tennessee did it with Boo Carter. You've got to be better building that relationship somehow, some way. Clearly, that was the determining factor there. So that is, I think, part of the factor in some of these recruiting losses is the relationships and the, like you said, just having dogs that want to go out there and do it 24/7. It's a tough job, but if you want to stick around in the SEC, you have to do it. Like Heupel said today, the footprint of the SEC, it's still so small. It's so regional for the most part. Yeah, you're getting some guys nationwide, but the bulk of these players are coming from the Southeast, and you've got to go up against Kirby Smart. You've got to go up against Nick Saban. Now Brian Kelly. Florida, no matter who's there, seems to get 4 and 5-star guys. Like, you have to Auburn with Hugh Freeze now, whatever voodoo he puts on commits or players that make them want to go play for him. I don't know. Lane Kiffin, like, you've got to be able to outwork those guys. And I do think that there's a little bit of that that's lacking.
I just looked, there's so much of this to kind of unpack, but I just look at like the Georgia game this year. That talent gap, and we talked about it at length, that talent gap's just huge. They embarrassed you on your own home field, and it was because their team is filled with 5-star players and yours is not. And that, in response to that tweet last night, a lot of Tennessee fans said, oh, well, this is the highest average player rating that Tennessee has had in a recruiting class in like 15 years, I think somebody was saying. I didn't fact check it.
It is.
I'll take them out to word. Yeah, so there you go. But I would say this. These are the teams that have a higher average player rating, some by a pretty significant amount, than Tennessee this year. Georgia, Alabama, Texas, Auburn, Texas A&M, Florida, Notre Dame, Oregon, Florida State. And then South Carolina is pulling up just right behind you. They're next in line to Tennessee there, and Oklahoma is next behind them. Like you're not closing that gap talent-wise with this class. It's at some positions, Jordan Ross on that edge, he's true 5-star. I think he's going to be a really excellent player. Mike Matthews, true 5-star. But you go down that list, and it is just a fact. Those teams that recruit at that elite level with that really high level set of dudes, they win those national championships. Period. End of story. I wish that wasn't how it was. Of course, I wish it was like college basketball where you get a lot more underdogs. Personally, to me, I like that a lot more. It's a lot more compelling. But that's not how it is. Those elite teams win. And so when you clock in a recruiting class where you struck out on all of these dudes, I mean, we just listed them. It's got to be close to 10, if not more than 10 dudes that you really worked hard on, and every single one of them you came in second. Like that can't be the way that it is if you want to close that talent gap and be at that national championship level. Sure, I think we've said it like this in weeks past. With the 12-team playoff, you're probably going to be good enough in some of these years to make that 12-team playoff. And that's fun, and that's great. You'll probably win 10 games, hopefully 11, maybe something like that. And then you'll make it to the playoff and you lose in the first round because you're not as good as those elite teams. You didn't close that talent gap. And that's, you're the top half of the SEC. You're still ranked higher than South Carolina and all. I mean, even Oklahoma this year. But when the rubber truly meets the road, you are not in a material way closing that talent gap. And that's just concerning to me. I don't know another way to frame it. Again, good class with some really fun guys in it. This element cannot just be skipped over because it's so meaningful. It really is. Like this is just like I look at the way that Heupel coaches, where he can really get dudes, especially when he gets a good quarterback. Clearly, he can really take teams to another level and potentially make them better than they probably should be. Just think if you could get elite guys, seriously, and I guess it's disappointing in that you look at going 11-2, and you had so much momentum, and you beat Alabama, and you did all this stuff, and you came in second for all of those guys, and you're losing to those. That's who you're losing to. Your Georgias, your Alabamas. This year, Missouri. Why are you losing to Missouri in recruiting? What are you doing? Why are we losing to Missouri in recruiting? What? I don't know who's behind that, whose fault that is. Stop. None of that. No losing to Missouri in recruiting. That's ridiculous. So, I don't know. Again, I seriously don't mean to be negative, but that's just part of this conversation. It is what it is.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it's a complex conversation where you've got some good things like we hit on at the beginning, some good players that you've signed, some difference makers, a lot of guys you missed on. There's just so much at play, but ultimately, yeah, you do have to have better players than everybody else. Like that's the only way you're going to win a championship. That's what would have beat Georgia in 2022 in Athens if you had a better roster than they did. Maybe it prevents the collapse of South Carolina. You've just, it is the biggest thing. We do have a recent update on Jordan Seaton. I saw some comments asking about Jordan Seaton. So his uncle has apparently told on-3 director of recruiting, Chad Simmons, that he will not sign his national letter of intent today, which we kind of, I mean, it's 7:30 Eastern, kind of figured it was trending that way. Says that Maryland and Tennessee are among the schools who have been in contact with Seton today on National Signing Day.
Really? Oh, that's interesting.
Tennessee's still pushing there. Maybe they saw your tweets last night and they thought, well, maybe we should get this guy to stop tweeting about this and go land a 5-star here. I don't know. But clearly the ship has not sailed there for Jordan Seton. I don't think there's he turned our deal down. We're not going to get back in the mix with him. And we'll see. I mean, Maryland, that's, he's from the Washington, D.C. area. The pull there would be to go play, close to home. There was a receiver several years ago from that Alabama and Georgia and that was after that ended up at Maryland. Who was that? Rakeem
I don't know.
something. I don't know. Maybe somebody will know, but that it's not every now and then they'll kind of pull one of those guys. So Mike Loxley's a good recruiter. Maryland's not a very good football team though. So that's one you would hate to lose to Maryland or Colorado in any other context, but Florida, Ohio State, Alabama, they all struck out with Seton as well. So you're in the mix there at least.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, he's
look, we all saw that coming, right? Like before he even committed to Colorado, like 2 days before that, there was a report from, I think it was 24/7, said wherever he commits to this week, that's not really where we expect him to sign. And they didn't even think he was going to commit to Colorado at that point. So I think people that have followed this recruitment, been in contact with him, the family, kind of, been on the ground with this recruitment, saw a lot of this coming.
I mean, we all thought it was so weird. Just like the entire thing has been really strange with him. I think he's clearly, I don't know what the right word is there. Head case. He's definitely a bit of an attention seeker. Easily swayed, like impressionable. Maybe
that whole deal was definitely Deion Sanders. Like, hey, Michael Irvin, old teammate, let's get him on Undisputed or whatever show he was on and commit live on TV. It definitely pulled some strings there, and all that came together pretty quickly. Who knows?
We will see, but it's not going to be today. So that's I
don't know why. I mean, look, you've got till February. You can drag this out another 2 months, and if you're him, I mean, that could have who knows how many more twists and turns if you give it another 2 months or a month and a half. Sure. I don't know why you'd be in a hurry to make that decision right now. Anyway, if you're the least bit undecided and you're a 5-star, nobody's turning you down. I mean, they'll make room. You'll have a spot somewhere. You can. I mean, you can wait a bit.
He is the type of talent when you look at it, where you go, yes, he may be a little bit of headache with the social media and that whole element of it, but he's so talented that the juice would be worth the squeeze there. And so don't blow the entire budget on that kid. I would also say that if that's something that Tennessee's thinking about doing at the moment, and maybe that's what it sounds like it's a situation where it's like, get in your final bids here, like trying to like buy a house. It's like, get your best and final by midnight. Who knows?
I understand the culture thing, and I applaud Heupel for it, but at the same time, you've still got to have, like you said, the best talent. I mean, Georgia is winning national championships with Stetson Bennett, who can't even stay in Los Angeles right now with the team because of whatever off-the-field issues he has going on. George Pickens, who was, fighting dudes on the sideline or squirting water in Jarrett Garantano's face on the sideline and getting penalties in the middle of games. Like, it's not always going to be perfect. You're putting a roster together of 100 and 120 18 to 23-year-olds. We all do dumb stuff at that age and impressionable, and we don't handle things the right way. Some handle things better than others. Sometimes you just got to deal with some of that and get on the field and let them make plays on Saturdays.
I just hope, I honestly, at this point, if Tennessee walked away from Seton and went, after that whole charade, we're we're not dealing with this kid anymore. Clearly, that's not what happened. If that report is true, that Tennessee talked to him today. But I just hope that he goes somewhere else, because we made that video about Jordan Seaton a couple of weeks ago, just about that situation and kind of Tennessee getting kind of embarrassed there. And so many Colorado fans in those comments where they were just like, these guys are just haters. They hate Dion, and they don't even know that he's going to be here forever. He said he would retire at Colorado, which just shows. That was literally a comment that said that, if I'm thinking correctly. It said Dion said he would retire in Boulder, and you just go, you're not a real college football fan. You're not. Because if you were, you would remember back to, I'll leave Auburn in a pine box, like you would remember all of these times. Bobby Petrino leaving in the middle of the night, Lane Kiffin leaving Tennessee in the middle of the night, like all of these things that have happened in college football. And you just look at the way that Dion has conducted that entire thing, and you just feel like, yeah, he's not long for Colorado there. That's not his goal. At least it certainly doesn't look that way from the outside. But for Colorado, I want to just dunk on those Colorado fans.
For Colorado fans, obviously you want Tennessee to land Jordan Seaton, but for Colorado fans, I think losing him to Maryland would be worse. Like, it would be more embarrassing, because at least Tennessee's a national brand. It's not. Tennessee has 5-star guys committed. They got a number 1 recruit in the country, and Nico, that signed a couple of years ago. There's no shame in losing a 5-star recruit to a traditional program like Tennessee, but you lose that guy to Maryland, and it's like, Dion,
like what are you doing?
Yeah.
How many recruits do they have in that class? I looked at it earlier today. It's like 6. Let me see, where was it? Oh, they're not even in the top 50. This is just 247. Dang it, where is it?
You got to search for quite some time to scroll all the way down.
I literally
down there with
98th. 6 commits. They are 98th in America right now. 6 commits.
They ain't gonna do it
on National Signing Day, dude. What are you doing?
It's not.
One of them is Jordan Seaton. What if they didn't have Jordan Seaton? They'd be down there with like D2 schools. Well, big yikes there, but I will laugh, and I will happily dunk on those Colorado fans if Jordan Seaton chooses to not go to Colorado. I will laugh for like an hour about that one. But that's the recruiting portion. We do have to also talk about the transfer portal here briefly, and talk about the pickup that Tennessee got, what might be coming down the pike in the transfer portal. We'll discuss it right after I tell you about our next great sponsor, BetterHelp, which I don't have a banner for. Well, look at that. I'm really prepared for the show. That's great. But look, the logo is right down there at the bottom of the screen. There you can see it. That's BetterHelp. And if you're a Tennessee fan, like Zach and I, you know how many years the Big Orange have shaved off of your life with the emotional roller coaster of college sports. Maybe the roller coaster of life is messing with your happiness or preventing you from achieving your goals. Regardless, if you have a clinical mental health issue like depression or anxiety, or if you're just a human being going through a hard time, therapy can give you tools to approach your life in a different way. And that's where BetterHelp comes into play. BetterHelp's mission is to make therapy more affordable and more accessible. This is an important mission because finding a therapist can be hard, especially when you're limited to the options in your area. BetterHelp's platform makes finding a therapist easier because it's online and remote. BetterHelp can match you to a professional therapist in as little as a few days. Plus, with our link, betterhelp.com/ATOZ Sports, you get 10% off your first month. See a therapist, because maintaining your mental health is just as important as maintaining your physical health. So this football season, check out betterhelp.com/ATOZ Sports and save 10% on your first month with BetterHelp. Shout out to them. And again, there's the logo right there, and I need to get a banner for them, and apologies. Okay, so with the transfer portal, so far, I guess you don't consider the JUCO guys coming through. That's not technically a transfer portal.
No.
But they They got Jamal Wallace out of junior college, who's a defensive lineman. And then they got Jacoby Thomas, who came from Kevin Byard's alma mater, MTSU, over there in Murfreesboro. He's a safety. Really like that pickup. Holden Stays, the Notre Dame tight end. We talked about in the last couple of weeks that we thought it was pretty likely that they might get that kid. That's a great pickup. And then this morning, Jermod McCoy from Oregon State comes to Tennessee and commits to the Vols to play next year. I would say Tennessee is almost certainly not done in the portal. And in my opinion, they need more guys. But what do you think of this haul so far, Zach?
Yeah, I mean, you went out and you addressed a couple of positions that you had no choice but to address. Had they get a tight end with McCallan Castles and Jacob Warren leaving, Holden Stays and Ethan Davis would be a pretty nice little combo there.
Yeah.
And then in the secondary, I mean, you saw all the losses from the portal, right? That had pretty much the entire starting secondary almost. Got a lot of young guys that Tennessee's really excited about. Josh Heupel reiterated that today, that he really likes the athleticism, which is nice because that was kind of the biggest thing about this secondary is outside of Kamal Hadden, the athleticism just really wasn't there for a lot of those guys. So he's excited about what they have, but clearly felt they need to add something there. Jermod McCoy seems like he could be like a day one starter. Gabe Judy-Lally probably not going to be back at Tennessee next season. Pretty sure about that. It seems like he'll probably be an instant replacement there. And then, Jacoby, you can fit him there at the safety, one of the safety spots, and kind of plug and play type deal. Still got to add some more though. I think you've got to go find an offensive guard. You just have to. Would really like more than just one, but it's kind of hard to bring these guys in from the portal unless you can say, hey, you're going to compete for this spot. The rest of the line, I don't think Spraggins has officially said he's back yet, but pretty certain he will be, along with Cooper and both of your tackles and Campbell and Mincy. You've really only got that one spot up for grabs, so it's hard to bring depth guys in at that point. So you really have to rely on your development of your offensive lineman there. And then wide receiver. Obviously, I think you still need to add a wide receiver. A lot of young talent, but we saw this season how you just need that depth. I mean, the depth it eroded very quickly this season with Ramel Keaton moving on. Yeah, that's a spot you have to replace. Obviously, you got Dante Thornton, you got Squirrel White and Caleb Webb and Chaz Nimrod. Maybe Brew McCoy. We'll see kind of what that decision ends up being. I don't think anything's quite settled there yet. You hope Nathan Leacock can develop into a guy, but I think you need to bring in another proven guy, and they're trying to. They're out there with Chris Brazel, Evan Stewart. You've heard those rumors. That they're kind of trying to lock down one of those, but haven't really been able to close the deal just yet with either one.
Yeah, you have to wonder if we're seeing kind of the same phenomenon as recruiting in the transfer portal, where Tennessee is getting close and these guys are choosing other schools. Obviously, we've all seen, Ole Miss is cleaning up. And it's, I don't know, it's a different philosophy altogether to just go all in on the transfer portal like Kiffin is doing, because his actual recruiting class is not particularly impressive. It's not bad, but it's just a little behind Tennessee's. But I think he's really banking on the transfer portal, like he did with the whole quarterback situation this last year. They got Juice Wells, obviously 2 dudes from Tennessee, and it's that is one way to do it. Clearly, Heupel is not doing that. They're being more selective in the portal, but also I do wonder if they are swinging and missing on guys. I think people, if they miss on Brazel, I think that's going to bother folks. But Evan Stewart would be amazing, but that's almost one where I go like, that would be kind of gravy. I think that would be a really, really great pickup, but I just wouldn't call that just a position of need. I think you'll be okay without those, but you have real positions of need. And hey, McCoy, Thomas, at DB, that's great. You're getting there, but linebackers and maybe some interior defensive linemen that aren't 3-star junior college guys. Maybe like there's a number of things there that I think Tennessee needs to keep doing and keep working at in this transfer portal for it to be a really complete effort. And I'm interested to see what they do. I'm not going to pass judgment on the transfer portal effort yet. I want to see who all they pick up. I'll just put it that way. I don't have the same kind of concern yet. They're clearly not going to be as flashy as Kiffin in the portal. Whatever. But as long as you end up with a nice haul, fine. That's good, and I'll be okay with it. But I just they got more work to do.
Yeah, I don't think you're going to see them go after like linebackers and some of those positions where some depth would be nice. You know, Hypo was kind of asked about it today. How do you balance not running off some of the guys that you already have? Because if you go recruit over them out of the portal, well, then they're hitting the portal to go look for a different opportunity. And it's, you know, what have you gained? I mean, we've seen a lot of times these guys in the portal aren't always upgrades. There's only a few, you know, obvious upgrades out there at some of these positions. You know, at linebacker, I think you've got Keenan Peely coming back. You've got T-Lander. You've got Arian Carter. You're featuring those guys. I don't think you want to take a chance on, especially Arian Carter and T-Lander, who I think played really well. You've also Elijah Herring, Caleb Perry. You've got some guys there that you really like. So I think Heupel's just of the mindset of, you know, at this position, several of these other positions, I'm going to ride with the guys that we got, that we recruited, that we developed, that we've kind of committed to. I think that's part of that culture thing, but I think he really likes the talent there. This is going to be a big year defensively for Tennessee. It's the first year that this kind of first wave of recruits that Tennessee and Tim Banks that they had signed, that they're all really going to kind of together step up and play a huge part in this defense. And you know, it's going to be very telling if they don't take a big step forward. Then I think you've got to kind of step back and really address some things on defense, because it's clear that it doesn't look like Willie Martinez is going to go anywhere. And as somebody pointed out earlier in the comments, he is one of their better recruiting assistant coaches. So maybe that's for the best. Maybe it was personnel. I don't know. We'll see how that works out this season. But Tim Banks, if that defense does not make a huge step forward this season, if these guys don't pan out, you know, I think Heupel after 2024 then will have some serious decisions he has to make.
Well, I'll ask you this, Zach, and yet again, my computer is frozen. I'm going to have to log out super quickly and log back in, and I got to get a new computer. But I'll ask you this. It's clear now that Heupel is not going to make any changes to the staff. I think a lot of people wanted him to do that after this year. Defensively, offensively, take your pick. But I don't think that's going to happen. What do you think about that? Do you think that that's because it just seems like he doesn't fire anybody, and it's odd. But maybe he just feels like nobody has crossed that line into fireable territory. I mean, what do you think about that, Zach?
I mean, there were never going to be any changes on the offensive side ever. I mean, that's Heupel's baby. He's got guys in place that he trusts to run his offense, that the continuity factor, unless somebody left for a coordinator job or a head coaching job, which was close. Jerry Mack was kind of in the mix there at Middle Tennessee. That was never going to be something that would happen. On the defensive side, you're right. I mean, we haven't seen him fire anybody, and eventually that's going to happen. I mean, or it's going to have to happen, because nobody in the SEC makes it through for years and years and years with the same defensive staff without having to let somebody go. It might be because of the recruiting factor that we mentioned earlier. I think some of that is on the defensive side of the ball. But right now, it seems like he likes the culture in that defensive room, which is fine. I mean, because here's the thing: if you fire, you know, Willie Martinez was the one this season that everybody wanted gone, right? If you fire Willie Martinez, well, then you and Tim Banks are both pretty much making this higher, and you've both got to be on the same page. And Willie's a guy that Heupel's been, you know, committed to. They'd worked together in the past at Oklahoma, and They have a long relationship. It doesn't seem like he's the type that's just going to, turn his back on that guy. And, maybe that's a flaw of his that will be exposed down the road when he kind of stays loyal to some of these guys when he shouldn't have. But if you fire him, then you and Tim Banks have got to, figure out a replacement, somebody that you both like, most importantly Banks, but that fits what Heupel wants as well. If you fire Tim Banks, well, then you might have to hire a whole new staff, and that messes with recruiting and some of the relationships you've built. And you don't want to lose Rodney Gardner, right? I mean, that's one of the best defensive line coaches in the SEC ever, in the last 2 decades. Well, then you're bringing in a new coach and you're saying, hey, we're hire you as the defensive coordinator, but you have to keep this guy. And some people don't take too kindly to that. Maybe it's not their philosophy. I don't know. There's a lot that can go on there. So I think it's going to take a lot for him to fire Tim Banks. And look, the defense wasn't the defense was a problem in games this season, but it was a problem because the offense didn't outscore the other team, whereas last year they did. I mean, the points per game was like 21, 22. That's reasonable if Josh Heupel's offense is operating the way it should. Obviously the quarterback situation, and you didn't get as much out of that as you wanted. That probably put a little more onus on the defense, not playing as well at times and not being able to get some of those major third down stops that were needed.
Yeah, I also don't feel that strongly one way or another about the staff changes. Because we had that conversation, like the defense by the stats was actually like a little better this season than the year before, and Heupel clearly just plays that, we'll outrun the bad defense.
Like, there's so many 3 and outs too. Like they put so much pressure on the defense because the offense wasn't able to stay on the field.
Yeah, I mean it was clear that was the goal, and it worked last year to 11-2, and that's great. And then your offense stunk this year, and then it doesn't work. And hopefully with Nico back at the helm, it works again, and that's fine. And so you don't necessarily want to mess up that equilibrium, but at the same time, if you think that you don't have a real, just like really serious recruiting coaching staff, maybe things do need to be shaken up in that way. But I none of us know the mechanics behind the scenes like that, and what exactly the deal is with every single dude on the staff. So just take it for what it is, and just say, well, I'll trust Heupel for now, and then obviously if it gets bad enough and it becomes completely obvious. I haven't seen anything outside of the DB play. I haven't seen anything that I look at and I just go, you gotta fire that guy. This is his last day on this staff. Like, there just hasn't been, outside of just those particularly bad games with the DBs, I haven't seen that much. I would say, some of these crazy recruiting misses, and just how many of them there have been, I wish that they would maybe add to the staff, maybe some good recruiters, but I haven't seen anything that's just over the top bad like that. We got a wise guy in the comments right here. Wesley says Charlie Burris has, and this Wesley clearly missed the segment, the first segment where I talked about that tweet from last night that I was 100% right about, and I apologize for nothing. And Wesley can just deal with it. But he said Charlie has bad insight on Twitter, doom and gloom, and not actually reading between the lines and forming good takes. Zach carries this dude. Bad takes and hoops too. First of all, my hoops takes are better than anything that you've ever said, Wesley, which is nothing. So I can guarantee that because any take is better than the no evidence you've ever given me of your takes. But I can guarantee you that I'm 100% right about this with recruiting. And if you think it's doom and gloom, that is what it is. That's your own prerogative. But, hey, whatever. If I really worried about what people said about me in the comments, I wouldn't be doing this. So there is that. But I like when people come in here. Yeah, talk that trash. I expected more of this tonight, actually, and nobody showed up. I wanted more people to come on here and be like, you're such a doomer and a gloomer. And then they come on here and they go like, well, actually, Charlie has a point. Oh, man. So
yeah, Twitter was pretty rough. I kind of stayed off of it for the most of the last couple of days outside of some stuff here and there, but it has been a lot of back and forth of doom and gloom and everything's fine. And like with everything, it's in the middle. It's in the middle. There's good things. There's things that need to be better. It's never as black and white as we kind of try to make it out to be on that website.
Yeah, it's a particularly stupid platform that I've progressively backed off of more and more because I just don't care. I like that one last night. I don't care that people are mad about it. I believe in the thing that I said, and I don't care. I don't care that you didn't like it. I don't care that you think I'm negative sometimes. I don't.
The whole conversation, not to get off on this too much, but the whole conversation, like if I'm sitting at a bar having a beer talking about football with a guy, we're going to go back and forth with some takes that the dude might say something that I think is completely idiotic or vice versa. I'd say something. We're not going to go at each other's throats at it. We'll just be like, I don't know, or maybe even nod along in agreement. Like it's never like on Twitter where you're just going right back at the person and like, this take of yours makes me angry. It makes me angry that you feel this like that. That's what that website kind of plays to, which is very annoying because nobody's like that in real life.
No, none of it's, and that's why just over time, like genuinely, I'll throw whatever out. The whole thing with the Titans earlier this year, I don't care. I don't care about any of that. Buck Rising went on the radio and tried to dunk on me for like 15 minutes. He gave me an entire segment. I don't care. I don't care. it just doesn't. It's like whatever. It's just Twitter. What Wesley says, still love you. Twitter is a different world. Vols should be a 9-win team. I like what I'm seeing. Good 4 and 5 year guys returning.
That's the part of this conversation that we kind of skipped over is those are almost like portal wins. Those guys that you got to come back, the Omari Thomas, the Cooper Mays, the tackles, Campbell and Mincy. Those were huge, that don't really factor into recruiting rankings. They don't factor into your transfer additions, but they kind of are in a way. You bring it back, Keenan Peely, he's going to be 26 years old out there hitting 19-year-old running backs or something. It's those are huge additions, even though they're guys already on your team. But getting those guys back is massive for this team next season.
Yeah, the pushback that I saw on that was that, it's great that you're bringing those guys back, but should we be celebrating that you're bringing guys back from an 8-win team? And
you didn't bring all of them back. The whole secondary's gone pretty much, and that's what everybody complained about. We liked the defensive line play. We loved what we saw from Keenan Peely in his one game against Virginia before he got hurt. Campbell, Mincy, they played well. They battled. I mean, those dudes battled. They were banged up all season, and they were out there as much as they could be. And Cooper Mays, you know how important he is. Not only do you get him back to, run the offensive line again, you also get his mentorship in that room, which clearly is needed because there was a big drop-off at center this season. So the guys you got back, I think are the right guys to get back. I still think Tyler Barron would have been a positive player to get back, but I also think at some point you go through that every single off season. It's like just whatever, go find what you're looking for because it doesn't seem like it's here. But yeah, I mean, it's not like you bring in every single one of those guys back. I mean, you're bringing back the guys that you think could help you. Brew McCoy, I mean, if he comes back, how huge would that be? I mean, his blocking on the perimeter clearly was missed.
Super valuable
after he left. When it's 3rd and 6 and you can throw a ball out there to him 3 yards behind the line to gain, and he's going to get those 3 yards somehow. It's the closest thing to Juwan Jennings that you've had since Jennings left. So it's about bringing the right guys back, and it seems like they are.
Yeah, I get what people are saying when they say, "Oh, well, why would you want to bring guys back from an 8-4 team?" But when Lumen says, "I'm out of here. Happy holidays, Merry Christmas, Lumen," even though you're even Vandy fans should have a Merry Christmas. But I just look at that, and a lot of these young guys should get better. You kept the older guys that were good. A lot of them, not every single one, but a lot of them. And overall, I think they were strategic with who came back and where they kept those resources. So I'm fine with that. I'm not going to be that cynical about that. Just be like, oh, this is an 8-win team. Why would we even bring these guys back? Well, why would I bring Cooper Mays back? Probably because who is going to play that position if he's not there? But I mean, what I do fear thinking about it, this is a complete other conversation that'll happen way later. But so many of these guys are going to be like 5th and 6th year seniors. What happens a year after? Like that's a different conversation.
Well, eventually, this whole COVID year thing is finally going to be done for everyone, and we won't have 25-year-olds playing quite as often.
Yeah, I say hopefully, but I do like how much senior leadership there's been and how many guys you can bring back. But hey,
I mean, yeah, that's huge.
Really is confusing.
You get Keenan Peely another year of helping Arian Carter and T-Lander and those guys develop. I mean, stuff like that's invaluable. You know, it doesn't show up in the box score, it doesn't show up in the wins and losses always, but it's pretty huge for them.
Well, we got to move on. We're already over an hour, and we still got 2 segments left, although they're going to be probably shorter here. Let's talk a little bit about Joe Milton maybe opting out of the bowl game. Seems like maybe something has turned there, maybe not. Let's discuss it right after I tell you about Zen Sports. We have been telling you all season long about Zen Sports, the new sports betting app exclusively in Tennessee. But we're excited to share some more big news. When you sign up for a Zen Sports account, you will receive up to $1,000 no danger first wager. When you place your first bet in Zen Sports, you can be reimbursed for the amount of your bet up to $1,000 maximum if that bet loses. But there's even more good news. Zen Sports is rolling out its brand new VIP rewards program. The VIP program will allow top-tier customers to earn more bonuses, comps, and perks. And it is by invite only. So if you feel that your Zen Sports play qualifies for VIP consideration, check out the program at zensports.com/VIP. No other sportsbook will offer you a premier sports betting experience with 24/7 top-tier customer support and faster withdrawals like Zen Sports. So what are you waiting for? Get going and download their app at zensports.com today. Zen Sports, betting just got better. If you have a gambling problem, call 1-800-889-9789. Terms and conditions apply. You must be 21 or older in Tennessee to bet. Zen Sports, shout out to them. So there has just been rumor flying around on the different message boards from different insider people and then from folks on Twitter speculating. I think the consensus is that the Tennessee fans would like to see Nico play in this game and be the starter. But and a lot of people have been saying this part too. I think it goes further than just being like, oh, I want to see the number one player from the last recruiting class finally play for us. I think it goes further than that, in that you would get him invaluable experience against a good defense. And it would just be kind of a nice setup, a nice preparation for next year to have the offense play with Nico and have the other guys around him, maybe some of these young dudes, get a chance to play with him. And just basically have your first game of next season now, more or less. That's kind of how it can end up being. But what has been flying around about that situation? Do you think we'll see Nico, Zach?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure Nico will play. I think they know they have to get him in that game, even if it's not a blowout. But with the Joe Milton stuff, I don't think anybody is for sure what's going to happen right now. I know Austin Price went on the radio this week and said that he doesn't think it's crazy talk that Milton could choose to not play in that game. For Milton, I don't think he's going to raise his draft stock or hurt his draft stock by playing in that game. I think it would probably be injury would be the biggest thing that you want to avoid. You're this close to the combine. Milton needs a good combine. He was fine this year, right? He wasn't bad. He didn't throw a ton of interceptions. He threw a few. But he didn't put up the crazy numbers that we thought he could and getting that Heisman conversation either. He was okay. And he has these physical abilities. There's a chance, a team's probably going to take a chance on him in the NFL. I don't know if he'll late round draft pick. I don't know how that'll go. It's still kind of early to know what the draft boards will look like. But if he goes to the combine and he runs really well, he throws really well, we've seen in recent years how combine testing can just cause a prospect to soar. Like, so Milton needs that. That would be the biggest reason you'd sit out of this game, is to not put that in jeopardy. Because, I mean, look, you're one snap away from being out for 3 months and not being able to go through any of that testing. And then you've really put yourself in a tough spot. At the same time, I'm sure he wants to play in Orlando. It's where he went to high school. He's from South Florida. Would be a really nice way for him to kind of end his college career right where it basically started, when he was being recruited by Michigan and some other big-time programs. So I can understand how it's a tough conversation for him, or a tough decision. Sounds like he has been going through practice, so it's not like it's a for sure thing he's not going to play, but we don't know for sure that he will play either. As far as Nico, I mean, the best thing for this team in 2024 is for him to play against Iowa and to play the entire game and to take every snap and be the first time that he kind of prepare. I know you say you prepare as a starter every week, and that's true of any good quarterback, but there's definitely a different mindset when you know it's you. There's a different sense of urgency. It's a different type of preparation. It's the real thing, and that would be huge. He needs to play in that game, and I've heard people say, well, it's a tough defense. Why would you want to throw him out there against that? I'm like, well, that's what you need to do. Like, you need to see what he has. He's essentially, at this point, he's essentially a sophomore. I mean, I know he's going to be a redshirt freshman next season because he didn't play in enough games, but he's essentially a second-year player. He has been with this team for a full calendar year at this point. He went through Orange Bowl practices. He was in Miami with the team. He went through spring practice. He went through fall practice. He hasn't dealt with any injuries that's caused him to miss any time. He's a second-year player at this point. So, like, he's got to be ready to go. And I think he is. I think Josh Heupel thinks he is. I don't think there's any concern about that. But this is when you've got to kind of get him out there and look, this doesn't count towards 2024. Yeah, you want to win this game. You should win this game. Nico should be able to operate the offense at a good enough level to outscore Iowa. It's not going to take a lot of points, I don't think, to beat them. So this is, it's kind of a perfect situation for him. But at the same time, I understand the loyalty to Joe Milton. I understand Josh Heupel not being like, hey, we don't want you to play in this game. Like, I don't want Heupel to handle things like that. Like, there is a human element to this. It's college football. It's what we all cheer for, but we're on our couches, watching this, in the stands, watching it. These are the guys living it day to day that have real relationships with each other, that they're going to have those relationships forever. You hope, like, you want your head coach to have a relationship with your quarterback 30 years down the road, because that's kind of what Tennessee's about. You want to see those guys back, and you don't want to see that bad blood. But you kind of hope that maybe Milton does make a decision for himself where it's like, hey, I'm going to go prepare for the draft. No hard feelings. Let's let Nico kind of do his thing and get a head start on his career.
Yeah, it's tough because I really like Joe Milton. He's a really good dude who stuck around Tennessee and was more loyal than anyone that you see at the moment in college football. I mean, sticking around behind Hendon Hooker for multiple years like that, really putting in his time until he finally got that spot as starter, and really, kind of soaked it in behind Hooker, and just was a really good sport through all of that. Finally got his time to shine. Also, like I say all of that, and I go, I think it would be better for Tennessee's football team for him to not play in this bowl game. And I kind of hate that. But it is what it is. I'm thinking forward. And I think most Tennessee fans are thinking the same, just from what I've seen. Really, really like Joe, and have really appreciated him. And it's, I think people compared Joe to Garantano. Joe was, in my opinion, Joe was better than Jared Garantano. But it was similar. It was similar to Garantano, where when he finally transferred out, he went like, "Yeah, young man, I get it. You got beaten to hell here, and you went through the absolute ringer and you stuck it out and you played hard for this university, and that's awesome, and we'll appreciate that, and thank you. And now it's time for somebody else. Like it's just that two-edged sword of that situation where it feels a little cold to be like that with Joe right now, and to be like, please just let Nico play. Also, I think it's just the best thing for this team to have that happen, just long term, and to just get that show on the road. And maybe it's the kind of, to your point there, maybe it's the best thing for him too, to prepare for the NFL, is to just skip it. But obviously we'll see. I think he's going to play. I think he'll play in that game.
My gut says that he probably will play. We should know I think we'll know before Christmas. I would maybe Friday, because I think they leave to go to Orlando the day after Christmas, and to practice down there a couple of days before playing, next on New Year's Day. So you would want that decision made by then, because you have to game prep. I'm sure there's kind of a deadline on, hey, we got to actually, they're practicing right now, but you got to start your Iowa prep the week before the game. So I would bet in the next couple of days we probably hear something.
Probably. So we'll see. Talk about it next week. And we'll do all of that then. And let's finish with this. According to Wesley, I have bad basketball takes, but I'm going to still give them here on this show. Let's finish with a little bit of basketball talk right after I tell you about Rattle and Snap Tennessee whiskey. Nothing goes better with a Tennessee sports victory, like hopefully the one that we see in the Citrus Bowl, than a great whiskey. And I'm talking specifically about Rattle and Snap Tennessee Select Straight Whiskey. Log Still Distillery has released a new Tennessee whiskey product line called Rattle and Snap. Rattle and Snap is a whiskey for those who make their own luck. There's a 4-year and an 8-year version. We've had both, and I've shown both on this show. They're so good, and they go great cocktails, great neat in a glass. And you should go get your hands on a bottle in stores across the state of Tennessee, but they're also available in Kentucky, Indiana, and Mississippi. Run, don't walk, to get some Rattle and Snap whiskey for those Tennessee sports victories. Follow Rattle and Snap on Instagram at Rattle and Snap Whiskey. Shout out to them. Now let's finish with this. Basketball played NC State at 10 p.m. in San Antonio. I don't know who came up with that plan on a Saturday night. I actually had, it was kind of perfect. Over the weekend, I had stomach flu, which was really fun. I highly suggest never getting a stomach flu. Holy cow, that was torture. But, I was just home. I wasn't off doing holiday stuff like I probably would have been otherwise. And so I watched it. But I think for other people, just the middle of Christmas, 10 p.m. on a Saturday, like what a weird time. In San Antonio is strange, and it felt strange. Dalton Connect played so bad. He played worse than I probably thought it was possible for him to play. That was kind of shocking. And just the whole set of dudes for Tennessee, it was just off. At the same time, Josiah Jordan-James is having himself a season, and he really looks like the 5-star senior leader that we thought he was always going to be. It seems like he's finally coming into that sort of final form that we've been hoping for, and hopefully it continues. And then Kai Ziegler, man, I think he got his swagger back a little bit. And again, hopefully it continues going forward. You got to get consistency out of all these guys. But it was a fun game. Tennessee pulled it out. Ultimately, they led for essentially the entire game. It got tied in the second half, but ultimately it really wasn't that much in question. But did you watch this game, Zach?
Yeah, I thought it was it was a good win, the type of game you kind of need after you've had that kind of weird stretch at the end of November. Not a, top team, top 10 team that you're beating, but at the same time, a competitive game, physical game. You had to go out there and win on a night where Dalton Connect couldn't, kind of take over and lead you to a win, like you said. So I thought it was the type of game that makes you better, like moving forward. Like it's the type of game you can take something from and be like, okay, we can win these types of games, especially before you get into SEC play. Thank goodness, they got this long layoff after they play whoever tomorrow night.
Tarleton State.
Yeah,
Tomorrow.
they're all for like almost 2 weeks basically. Thank goodness they get to play Norfolk State before they open conference play, because I always hate those layoffs. I feel like that's when you play your worst basketball, and if you start bad with a conference game, that's usually not good. Not a good chance of winning those games typically. At least it seems that way. So glad the schedule works out like that. But I just thought it was a big win just to show that you can still go out there and out physical a team and win when your main guy's not going out there and just having an absurd night, dropping 35 points or something.
Yeah, it's the exact type of game that I love. I love a win like that. Yeah, it's not great that Dalton Connect played that way. Again, I genuinely think that was worse than I thought he was probably capable of playing. And that's not great, but I would say get it out of your system now and save up all the good stuff for league play and for the postseason. But on a night when it was just a disaster for your best guy and some of the other dudes on the team too, Adu had a poor game. You found a way, and it's such a coaching cliche, but that was a character win. It just was. I hate that. It is cheesy for sure. It was a character win, and you really find out who your team is in a game like that when the chips are really down and you go like, okay, our best guy's not showing up. We gotta. And he was not showing up to the point where Barnes just yanked him. Where Barnes was like, okay, your night's done. You're not playing anymore, and he had to just go sit on the bench for a huge portion of that game. And because he was not just not playing well, he was hurting the team when he was out there turning the ball over and just not playing great defense. And so I love that. Get Connect's head screwed back on straight here for your games coming up, and I am still very excited about this team. I think there's so much potential, and I think your national pundits think that too. Tennessee ranked again in the top 10 this week, and that there's a lot of belief in this team across not just local media and fans like us, but nationally too. I think you just watch this Tennessee team and you go like, they got the pieces. They do. If Adu plays at the top end of his ability, if Awaka had a great game and really rebounded well in San Antonio, if he plays at the top end of his ability, and then you add in Connect, and then you add in Zizi and Vescovy and all these dudes, they just come at you in waves, and they just have a ton of talent. And so, yeah, I'm happy with it. They're gonna finish with only 3 losses going into conference play. And then you got to play Ole Miss, who has been getting so much hype. They're one of the only undefeated teams left in America. And then you look at their schedule, and the best team that they've beaten is Memphis. Yeah, Memphis. That's their best win. They also beat NC State. And Memphis is certainly not bad, but it was in Oxford. Or what was it? Yeah, it was in Oxford, it looks like. But that's going to be a good game, and we'll kind of talk about that probably next week because it's not till the new year. And I think that might be that. I guess next week's Christmas. I don't know when we'll do the show. Probably maybe even Thursday, which will be our pre-bowl game show. In fact, I think it's going to have to be next Thursday. Because I know my own schedule, and that's the day that it's gonna have to be, unless it doesn't work for Zach. We'll talk about that off air.
Yeah.
Okay. So there you go. Let's play it on next Thursday for this show. We'll reconvene then. Anything else for the folks at home, Zach?
No, that should about do it. I'm sure we've taken up quite a bit of their time at this point, but appreciate everyone sticking around and listening to us go on about some recruiting stuff.
Yeah, even what was it? I think it's a Donald Trump tweet from like years ago.
Where it had to be years ago. He's still not.
Well,
right.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, he hasn't tweeted in however long, but it was like 2015, I think. And I used to retweet it every Christmas Day, if I'm thinking correctly. And it was like, Merry Christmas to everyone, even the haters and the losers.
Oh, yes, I remember. Yes.
And I used to retweet that every year because it just made me laugh. And that's my sign off for tonight because of Wesley there. He did say that he still loves me, but
Yeah.
I'll say Merry Christmas, everybody, even to the haters and the losers. Charlie Burr, Zach Reagan, thanks so much to everybody for tuning in. Yeah, we couldn't do this show without you. It just means the world, as always. Even when you come on and you tell me I got bad takes, that's okay. We appreciate that too. But everybody, Jason, Troy, Firefighter, Wesley, Luban, Vol Slim, Jimmy, everybody hanging out tonight. We couldn't appreciate it more. That's it for us, and we'll talk to y'all next Thursday.
See you guys later.